You transitioned from being a manager to a leader of a huge global international organization, and it became much more of a leadership task, the whole Dyson story. To what extent did that involve you developing yourself as a leader at the same time as the organization developing itself?
Yeah, a great deal, I would say. I was exposing myself to vast, difficult, virginal situations, things that I'd never experienced before. And with that came new challenges. So I was constantly learning. And I think that if I consider who I was when I first met James Dyson back in '96 and who I was when I left, the same core, of course, but I'd learned so much. We'd set up so many businesses, we'd had so many challenges, so many rough fights, legal fights with competition, with people, hiring, firing, you name it. There'd been so many grand experiences, and I try very hard to learn from my experiences. Positive, repeat. Negative, don't repeat.
Were you conscious during that period of time that you needed to grow and learn?
I was when it was clear that the business was potentially able to vertically take off in round about year 2000, 2001, before the development into the US market, the Japanese market, all the manufacturing transfer to the Far East. I sensed that this had the potential to be explosive. So I was very, very conscious and very concerned at times as to whether I would be able to rise to this. So although I'm very positive and very confident, because I'm so in tune with who I am, and I'm the first person to beat myself up, I think that there were little warning signs for me there. And of course, my reaction to those is to try to acknowledge them, but get round them and just make sure I made it work.
What did you do to make sure that the delta between your capability and the complexity of the organization didn't get too big?
Well, I think my number one trick, which I don't mind sharing with anybody, is I didn't do it all myself. I hired some incredibly positive, talented people, smarter people than me, right? And I created the environment for them to succeed. That's what I did. I supported them, encouraged them, set the direction, set the path with them. I also had I had some good advisors around me too. I had a guy who sat on the board as a non-executive director, somebody who continues to be a good friend and advisor of mine to this day, a guy called Sir Richard Needham, who sat on our board for a long time. Richard was, like me, straight talking, didn't pull his punches, so you were always guaranteed very straight, direct, constructive, helpful feedback from him. And that helped me gauge what I could and couldn't do. And also I realised, it's like chasing the demons away. Sometimes you feel more challenged than really you are because you've got a reference point of one. You're just comparing yourself with yourself. When you meet other people who have leadership challenges, and nowadays I meet a lot of leaders, you realise that it's actually quite normal for good, well-structured leaders to feel that sense of fragility maybe at key moments. And actually, you're more capable than you think you are. We are, as humans, we're enormously resourceful. Incredible what we can achieve when we put our mind to it.
I think it's very interesting the number of chief executives that I've met, worked with, interviewed over the years who use this phrase, well, of course, the key to success is to surround yourself by bigger, better, smarter people than you. Yes, it's Management 101 in every textbook I've ever read. But the truth is, very few people do it. They actually don't do it. And they don't do it because I think they're insecure. What was it that enabled you to do that?
Well, I think first of all, you make the hires, so get the right caliber of people around you. And by the way, that's not just like as soon as you try it, you do it succeeded. Sometimes in some jobs, you'll get it wrong on attempt one, and it might take attempt 2, 3, or 4 before you've got the right character. When you've got them, Then it's about how you lead them. This is where you can indulge and be smarter than they are because of the job you're doing. So now your job is to use these resources and to get the absolute maximum out of them. A lot of leaders, that's where they fall over, because they're trying to impose their ego or their will on these guys. And this to me is perverse. It's just the way I think. If you go out and you hire somebody who's an absolute stunningly good in this area, and then you don't listen to them, I think that's a bit like hiring a solicitor and then just ignoring all the advice they give. You'd be better off not hiring a solicitor in the first place. So I think a lot of it is what you do with that team. You genuinely, and that means you've got to be prepared to take a few risks, and maybe even you have to have the odd prima donna in the team. You know, I had 2 or 3 big goal scorers with some of the more conventionally wise senior types within the Dyson organisation, really frowning at this and sort of advising me that perhaps this wasn't very sensible, having these mavericks, these prima donnas on the team. But if we hadn't had those people on the team, we'd never have achieved the result we did.
Right.
I was always confident, David, that I could keep those people sufficiently under control that there wouldn't be a big blowout.
Leadership isn't for 1 or 2 people. I mean, it's sort of a mindset that I would believe everyone is a leader, and maybe that slightly comes from my faith, slightly from my experience in Teach First, that you're here to lead change, to make the world better, to be the best that you can be, to lead yourself, to have that mindset, and I think that's a great mindset for anyone to have.
The scene in Pulp Fiction when they call Mr. Wolf, and I don't know if you've ever seen Pulp Fiction. What happens is these 2 gangsters in an accident kill teenagers in the back of the car, and then they have to rush off to Quentin Tarantino's house. They turn up there and they're covered in blood. They don't know what to do, and they phone up the big boss man, and the big boss man says, "I'm calling Mr. Wolf." Oh, thank goodness! And then this guy gets in a sports car and drives over there. 5 minutes later, there's Mr. Wolf. He's there, Harvey Keitel, and all he does is just tell everyone really clearly what to do. You're going to do this, you're going to do this. And then at one point, he's there sipping his tea. At some point, someone questions, like, look, you're in this absolute pickle. Can you just do what I say and everything's going to be fine? He carries on sipping his tea, having a chat about furniture with the homeowner. And then half an hour later, they're all driving off safely with the fact that... So all Mr. Wolf does is catalyse them solving the problem.